we envision a region where people have what they need and they're connected and there's a sense of belonging, and that's a collective effort.
Welcome to The Conversation. I'm Crystal Frost, and today we're talking about the power of philanthropy and community partnership in Northern Michigan. Joining me is Allison Mateva, incoming president and CEO of the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. That's an organization that's been quietly shaping our region for more than 3 decades. Allison has served with the foundation for nearly 20 years and will officially take the helm on January 1st, 2026. Allison, welcome to The Conversation.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you are here. You have been with the Community Foundation for almost 2 decades. You started in grant making, you served as the chief operating officer, and now you're stepping into that CEO role. What has the journey taught you about community, collaboration, and, philanthropy, and how we do that here in Northern Michigan?
Yeah, so I'll start a little bit with how I see the role of philanthropy and really how the Community Foundation sees our role, which is to be a spark, to be a catalyst for positive change for the people and the places of this community. And for us, we serve Antrim County, Benzie, Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, Leelanau County, as well as the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. So that's how we think about our community in the broadest
region.
sense. That's our region, that's our place. And we really try to be that spark by inspiring generosity and giving, by caring for the resources that are entrusted to us, and then returning those back to the community to support the people and the places here. And really what I've come to learn and understand, or really understand, is that to do that work, to fill that role, it takes community, it takes collaboration. And we envision a region where people have what they need and they're connected and there's a sense of belonging, and that's a collective effort.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say about philanthropy is that it is the giving of money, of course, that's a big part of it, but it's also the giving of time, and it's the giving of your skills and your experiences and your voice through advocacy or sharing stories. And we see all those layers of philanthropy here in our community.
So I think it's important for maybe people who are not familiar with this too. You mention the giving of money, the donations and that aspect. How does that usually look? Is that somebody who maybe sets up a fund in the name of someone else, or it's something they feel very strongly about and they want to see that, continued philanthropy even after they're gone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the beauty of giving, and particularly the beauty of giving at the Community Foundation, is there's room for everyone and there's room for all kinds of giving. So we see donations that are large. We also see donations that are on a smaller scale. So folks who are maybe giving $10, or maybe they do it on a monthly basis to kind of build that pattern and commitment of giving. And we see giving that's really directed towards a particular cause or a particular organization that's meaningful to the person who's contributing.
Oh, nice.
And then we have giving that's really broad and for the community, where our team, our board, our staff can help match those dollars to areas of greatest need as those change over time. So we see it all.
I think that's really important too, because as the community needs change, you have that sort of flexibility in those gifts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to acknowledge that you've literally grown up with this organization. How has the foundation evolved over the years, and how have you evolved with it?
Yeah. So that framing it feels so true. It feels so true. I came to the Community Foundation. I had really, I was just beginning to build my professional experience. I really knew very little about foundations or philanthropy. I'd never heard of a community foundation. And so, I really was learning from kind of zero in a lot of ways. I had the skills for the job they hired me for, but I didn't understand what I was really getting into. And, if you'd asked me then, I would never would have imagined that I'd still be here. sitting here talking to you and also just, continuing to serve the community through the organization. So, the thing that was really fortunate for me is I've had a lot of opportunity to see different parts of our work, to be involved in different parts of our work. And that's really helped me grow and develop skills and a deep knowledge of our organization. And so that's been, a real gift. I think what I had a board member ask me once, why do you stay?
Yeah.
And I always just thought that was such a funny question. And really why I've stayed is because I've had that opportunity to learn and grow, and because of what the Community Foundation is. Yeah. And community foundations can be kind of a funny thing because they exist everywhere.
Right.
Every county in Michigan is served by one. But community foundation to community foundation, they can often look very different. And that can be a little frustrating when you're trying to understand what a community foundation is. But the reality is community foundations are really built to meet the needs of their community, to leverage the assets of their community. And community by community, there's differences.
There's definitely differences.
So it makes sense then that community foundations really meet their communities in different ways. So I think some of the ways we've evolved over the 20 years I've been at the organization and our 30-year history is growing our community fund focus. So those are the dollars that are generally for the community, have the most flexibility, the most ability to be responsive. We've really expanded our use of tools to have impact. So we've brought in something called impact investing, which is where we take a portion of our assets that would normally be invested in the traditional market, investment market, and instead we invest them locally in small businesses, for example.
Nice.
Small businesses are part of the fabric of a community, and we can't support them with grant dollars. So this is a way that we can expand the ways that we have impact. I think one thing, though, that I'll also mention that has not evolved and is always true, and that is how we rely on partnerships with donors and being really thoughtful stewards of the resources that are entrusted to us so that we can do the good work that we do both now and long into the future.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting that you mentioned that, too, because I think I was probably in my early 20s when I said, what is this? What is a community foundation? And then finding out exactly how robust and how different and how diverse they are from county to county. And I would assume, too, because you're representing the region, the Grand Traverse region, the needs in Leelanau County are going to be different than the needs in Kalkaska County. And it's really important to note that.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it is a big transition moment for both you and for the foundation. So what are you most excited about as you're stepping into this leadership role?
Yeah, there's it's been a big year. It's been a big transition year. We've been fortunate to have a long transition with our outgoing CEO. That's been really helpful and not something that every organization gets to benefit from. But I think as we're kind of getting to the point of transition,
like it's a month,
ultimate transition. There's a few things that come to mind that I'm excited about, and one is the people that I have had the opportunity to work with, and will continue to have the opportunity to work with. We have an incredibly talented, smart, caring staff who just do really good work every day. And so super lucky to work alongside them and really excited to continue to be able to do that. Yeah. We've got great partners in the community. We have a great board. We have really generous, cool people in our region who are willing to invest in the community and do good work. So just really excited about that. I think another thing I'm excited about and a bit intimidated by, if I'm being honest, is really continuing to care for and continue to build the foundation that so many have contributed to over 30 years. And it's a privilege and a responsibility. And so it's really exciting to think about how can we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and continue building a strong foundation for the future. I think is really exciting. And then the team and I think, are just excited about some possibility and opportunity to continue growing our capacity and our resources in order to do the best we can to have the positive impact that we want to have.
It's an exciting time.
It is an exciting
It is.
time.
It
yes,
really is.
Yes.
It's also been a challenging time. Community foundations across the country, they're feeling the ripple effects of, recent federal and state funding cuts.
Yeah.
So everything from housing and childcare to environmental programs, local infrastructure. How are those changes at the federal and state level being felt here in Northern Michigan?
Yeah. Those changes and the challenges they are being felt here locally. Throughout this year, we've been actively partnering with and collaborating with our funder partners and really trying to stay connected to our nonprofits and our communities and the impacts, use data to understand things, and really just figure out how we can best align and support our communities in this time. One of the things that we've heard is that, local organizations certainly are experiencing funding losses, or they're experiencing, changing information quickly, high levels of uncertainty, which makes it difficult for our nonprofits, particularly to do their mission work,
right?
As they're trying to keep up with things. We did a survey early in the year, and about 55% of the respondents received some level of federal funding. And so certainly there's those financial impacts. Beyond that, though, we're also hearing that nonprofits that don't necessarily receive federal or state funding, they're still being impacted because the people they serve are being impacted. And so there's been higher demands on services provided by our nonprofit partners.
For sure.
We recently completed a survey that really illuminated some of the real economic and social strain that's being felt by people in our communities, and the challenges and the pressures that's placing on our nonprofit partners who are trying to serve those neighbors. And so that's been really challenging. So I think sometimes it can feel as though things happening at a governmental level or a federal level particularly can feel distant, but our local communities and the people who are here really are feeling the effects.
As someone who has had, some limited experience in the world of fundraising, I think, and even just sitting on local boards and things like that, I think one of the big things we've all been doing for the past decade or so, though, is to try to remove some of that reliance on funding that is never guaranteed, right? There's never a guarantee that some of the state and local in federal funding is going to be there. And yet we've heard that more than half of the nonprofits in our region do rely on those federal dollars. So is there anything, now that that the foundation has done to try to fill those gaps, to reimagine how the support is delivered? I know it's very difficult because you are a big picture organization, right? You're doing the surveys, you need to understand the needs, but is there something that people can look to now?
Yeah. So there's been a number of things that I would point to, and one thing, and making the connection about local partners, being interested and looking for ways to diversify their funding sources and build resiliency and sustainability, and that's all true. And I think the other thing we know is that philanthropy can't fill the gap. It can't begin to match or replace what federal funding supports have offered. And there was a study early in the year that literally quantified that. And what was found is that if all of philanthropy, private foundations and community foundations, all just liquidated and gave all their money away, it could replace federal funding for 79 days.
That's it.
Then we'd be done. And so I think what that really calls to is like, okay, what can we do? And so, certainly leveraging the resources we have is part of that.
Right.
And we do have funding. And so we do need to be thoughtful and smart about how we match that funding to our community. A couple of specific ways we've done that is through a newer grant process we call our Quick Response Fund.
Yes.
Quick Response Grant Cycle. And the goal there really was to have a faster ability to respond than our typical grant processes allow for things that were emergent or unanticipated or, particularly timely, maybe couldn't wait for the traditional grant process. Sure. And so far, we've been able to move about $40,000 through that process to kind of meet these needs that come up. Certainly, our community funds grant cycle process is one of the ways that we're trying to address the needs that are emerging and changing. That was about $330,000 to 14 grant partners. 6 of them had directly shared impacts due to federal funding or policy changes. 54% of those grants, don't gloss over on the numbers here, 54% of those grants went to support housing, over 30% to mental health or youth. So these are areas that certainly I think are well-known areas of need in our community and certainly seeing impacts because of the changing landscape.
I love the numbers personally.
Okay,
though.
Great.
Because I am a data nerd and that's so often how you are able to understand what the needs are.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Sure. One other way that we've sort of responded in a specific, tangible way that I think might be worth sharing, particularly to your point about how nonprofits are regularly trying to imagine and reimagine their work. Through collaboration with our funder partners throughout the year and talking with our nonprofit partners, there really were 3 topics that kept coming up that they being our nonprofit partners were hoping to receive support for beyond money. And that was helping to do some scenario planning for their organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Helping to learn about how to navigate through change and change management. And then also about how to think about adaptive strategies for funding.
All so important too.
All super important topics. And they kept coming up. And so we worked with our partners at Rotary Charities who designed their fall workshop series to bring that content to our community locally. And then it was collaboratively funded by Rotary Charities, by the Olson Foundation, by the Huckle Family Foundation, and by us. So just a really, I think, tangible example of how we've been trying to listen to what our partners need, help to bring that forward and fund it.
Yeah, I mean, we really have covered that sort of, shifting landscape, how you're evolving. And I want to kind of reemphasize what you were just talking about there is not just a grant maker, as a connector, as being able to look and allow for some of the nonprofit partners to look at things in a big picture way and connect to those resources. I think that is such an important thing as well, though, because, I also from the nonprofit world, I think sometimes we just get really focused in on the grants.
Yeah.
And what ultimately you, Rotary Charities, some of these other partners are trying to do is to prepare these organizations to become stronger and healthier. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
We talked about how the region is changing rapidly as well. And you mentioned some of the funding and things going to housing, to workforce, to mental health, to, things in those worlds. When you're positioning yourself to address those emerging priorities, what has to happen on the endowment side of things? If you have someone that has an endowment that decided this is what I want these funds to be, used for, but you see the community rapidly changing, you have to honor, what those wishes were, but at the same time, understand the changing needs.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we have been talking a lot about this healthy tension that you're elevating, and that is, how do we grow and evolve to be responsive to our communities as they change and evolve, and that is a natural thing that happens over time, while also really protecting and honoring, one of the ways we think about it is the foundation that built us.
The foundation, the foundation of the foundation.
Which in large part has been donor partners entrusting us to steward smartly and thoughtfully and effectively resources for a particular organization or for a particular cause. And when we look at so I've got more numbers for you. When we look at the entirety of our grant making, we do about $3.5 to $4 million a year, which is wonderful.
That's huge.
Most of that is coming from those endowments that have a very dedicated purpose. And that's really great because that's reliable, predictable, consistent money that we're able to steward into the community each and every year. Yeah. The counter to that, or the complement to that, is that we really do need these community funds that I mentioned earlier, which are flexible and can be responsive to the needs of the community as they're changing. And so we've been working really hard over the last 5 years, particularly to continue to do a really great job stewarding those assets that have built us while also growing these community fund assets so that together we can have a greater impact and a deeper impact in the community.
I will just say every nonprofit in the world wants to hear the phrase flexible funding.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really do, because as your needs change.
Yes.
The flexibility to be able to steward those in a different direction at times is so important.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of move into talking about, the leadership, the vision, the road ahead. So January 1st, everybody else is waking up after New Year's Eve. You are there in this new role.
I might wait till January 2nd.
I was going to say.
Maybe even the 5th. We'll see.
I love it when it's like, nope, January 1st. And I just imagine Allison just like, here we go, taking notes.
Allison will probably be corralling children in her house that day.
Yes. You are stepping into this role at a pivotal time.
Yeah.
And, we talked a little bit about what you're excited about. And we talked about some of these things about how the foundation has evolved. But, what is your vision? What is your vision in the next 5 years for the foundation?
Yeah, that's no small question, Crystal. I was thinking, I've been asked that a fair amount. And certainly the board wanted to know that when when they were considering me. I had this key takeaway from a conference last year for community foundations that is quite simple, but really has stuck with me. And that is that as a community foundation, we really have an opportunity, we have a privilege, and we have a responsibility to use all the unique tools that we have to do good in our communities and to try to be that spark for positive change for our neighbors and our communities. And so that's something that I have kind of held on to and have been thinking about, okay, how do we do that? How do we use the tools we have? And so I think I mentioned we've been doing strategic planning this year, which is
super fun.
Super fun. It actually has been. I'm a little bit of a strategic plan.
I feel like that's your vibe.
I can get into that. But what has come out of that, I think, are three key things that show for me how we can lean into that using all of our tools. And so one is really what we were talking about a minute ago in terms of deepening kind of our very traditional roles of growing dollars for the community, stewarding those, and moving those back to our communities. And it includes both caretaking of those resources that are designated for an organization or designated for a cause, while also continuing to grow those flexible resources in community funds. And together, those two things will help us have better impact. The other layer is how do we nurture and steward our organizational resources and continue to have really strong financial health and continue to take care of the people that fuel our work.
Yes.
Our staff, our board, our volunteers. And so that will be a big thing we focus on and kind of continuing excellence and also thinking about new ways we might use our resources. Maybe doing more impact investing, for example. And really, as I said, and it can't be said enough and strongly enough, taking care of the people and our team who are just doing really incredible work.
Absolutely.
And then the third leg of that bar stool or countertop stool is really leaning into our role as a leader and how we can be bold and how we can be caring in our leadership. And, that could be things like, how we continue to collaborate and be a trusted partner in the community, how we use our voice in advocacy and public policy, continuing to elevate our goals and values around equity and inclusion and belonging for all the people here in our communities.
Right.
So I think kind of those pieces taken together is how I see and how I think our team sees kind of leaning into that role for the future.
It's a good vision. I like it. Thanks. I think it's important to talk a little bit about some of the lessons that maybe you've been taught and the mentors you've had, and especially past leaders like the outgoing CEO, Dave Mengebier. What are those lessons? What can you say about the relationship that you have been able to have, and how will that guide you moving forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have been, because I've had the opportunity to be at the Community Foundation a long time,
Yes.
I've had three different leaders.
Yeah.
And they were all very different and different skills, different strengths, and really led our organization through different sort of, call on Taylor Swift here, different eras of our organization. And I actually hadn't thought about it that way before, but really each of those leaders were stewards of the organization at a moment in time, and they really each brought different skills and strengths. And so I've learned a ton from all of them.
Right.
And Dave in particular he's dynamic and he's creative, and he has been just the right leader for us for the last 8 years. And so I've been thinking about, okay, what can I take? What have I learned? And I kept coming back to this analogy that Dave uses a lot, and that is this idea of building the plane while you're flying it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of a funny thing to say, and at times has been challenging to hear. But I think what it actually speaks to, as I've reflected on it, is Dave has this ability to think creatively, to have a vision and move that vision forward, knowing that it's going to take continued learning and adaptability and tinkering along the way in order to build the best plane we can.
Yeah.
And if we perfect the plane first, then there's a lot of good and learning that could have been lost along the way.
Absolutely.
And so that is not my natural state to think that way. And so that's something that I'd like to take as a lesson from Dave and really think about how do we honor that strength that he brought. And I would say, Crystal, the biggest lesson, and so, maybe this is like helpful for people who might be listening, is that there's no one right way to be a leader, and there is no one single model of what leadership looks like. And so particularly of the advice I've been getting over the last year is like, be the leader you are and use your skills, have good self-awareness, surround yourself with people who can help in the areas where your skills aren't as strong. But learn from, be inspired from others, and then just do your best to be you.
I mean, that is some really, really good advice. I do think that oftentimes, especially in when you have change, at the top, sometimes it's easy for people to be afraid of that, right? Or to say, oh my gosh, well, that's not how so-and-so did it. But, for everyone to say, be the leader you are and do and honor that, because it's really hard to change your style, right?
Yeah.
I do hope that you get more comfortable building the plane while you're flying it.
Yes.
I, too, am not super comfortable with that. I'm like, wait a second, can't we just read a manual first, But I get it. I totally do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before we go,
Yeah.
I do want to say something about community trust.
Yeah.
And as you know, and I think as our listeners know, trust is everything in philanthropy. When I give you my money, I want to make sure that you are going to do with that money what I asked you to do. And how do you plan to deepen that trust with donors? And not just donors, but with your nonprofit partners, your grantees. I think that's a really important piece of this.
it is absolutely a really important piece of this. And we know that trust overall is low in a lot of ways in communities and between people and institutions. We're really fortunate that doesn't seem to be the case for us. We still hear and experience that there's a high level of trust for our organization and the work we do, which is really great because it is at the center of our work and being able to do any of the good that we hope to be able to do. As I think about how we might try to both protect and deepen trust, I think about being purpose-driven, and I think about that one of the ways we can do that is really lifting our purpose above our organization. And so what I mean by that is really centering that we're here for the community, and we're here for the people here, and we're here to make our communities stronger and, help to provide more opportunities and more resources so that people are connected and empowered and feel that they belong.
Yeah.
And that is more important than the organization. The organization is one of the ways we can help accomplish that.
Sure.
But holding that purpose, I think, is really important. And so some of the ways that we can do that, and we already do that, is through really holding celebration of generosity as a value and celebrating when that happens, whether or not it means money is coming to the community foundation. And if we really believe in our purpose, then we need generosity all over, everywhere, by everyone, in all different shapes and forms. So I think that's one example. I also think about just authenticity and building relationships built on honesty and transparency and integrity. That's all essential to protecting and deepening trust. And I think for us that means being really self-aware about what our unique role in the community is and what it's not, because we can't do everything and we can't be everything to everyone. And so just having that kind of that mindset, because again, like if our purpose is one thing, we'll do our part and we need others to do their part as well. And then I think just showing up in big and small ways and knowing that we are reliable and we're going to do what we say we're going to do, and can be counted on in big ways and small ways. I think is part of that too.
I love it. Well said. I mean, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Before we go, finally, what do you hope people will say about the foundation and about your leadership in 5 years?
I hope people are seeing and saying that we're a trusted leader, we're a trusted convener, we're a trusted partner. We're working tirelessly and unapologetically to support our communities. And for us, communities are communities of people and communities of place. That you can count on us. We're a funder, we're a partner you can count on. And really that together we're empowering people in communities to drive meaningful, lasting change.
Yeah. Well, we are entering into the Allison era at the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation.
Do I get a color for my era?
I think we should. I think we should get tote bags too. I love that. Thank you so much for being with us today.
And thanks for having me.
It's been fantastic conversation. Allison Mateva, incoming president and CEO of the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. Once again, thank you for joining us on the conversation. It's so inspiring to hear how the foundation is adapting, how they're leading through change, how they're ensuring that Northern Michigan continues to be a place where generosity is meeting that impact. And congratulations on that new role. The Allison era is upon us, and we look forward to seeing you and to seeing what's ahead. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Conversation.